Hello, everyone. Welcome to our bi-weekly food security community call, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Anne Marie Hart Bookbinder, the Food Security Programs Manager here at the Food Council, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Elizabeth Tuin, Cynthia Cuestas, and Beza Tena. As we look ahead to the Thanksgiving holiday, today's call is all about looking back on how we spent a lot of our time together as a community and thanking all of you for a year of incredible accomplishments, hard work, and support for our food assistance community and our residents experiencing food insecurity. Before we get started, I'll share some brief housekeeping reminders. We will upload today's agenda in the chat box now, and we are recording today's call for note-taking purposes. As a reminder, all links and content will be sent in meeting notes in 2 weeks, and any time-sensitive materials will be shared by tomorrow via our email distribution. And finally, we invite you to add your name and organization in the chat box and ask that you please remain muted during our speakers' presentations. We are going to switch up the usual order of topics today and move our Food Council updates toward the end of the call. That being said, we are going to kick things off by welcoming Chris Webster and Myra Derbyshire from the Food Security Task Force, who will be sharing their gratitude for this community with highlights of the many innovative partnerships that were founded between the county and food assistance providers to feed county residents during COVID-19. Welcome, Chris and Myra.
Good morning.
Morning.
Or afternoon. Is it afternoon? I'm losing
Afternoon.
track already. Should I have a turkey in the oven at this point, or am I still okay to have it in the freezer? That's the depressing question.
So Chris, I can go ahead and get us started, and we'll just kind of roll with it. And I just want to say we are so grateful that the Food Council has asked us to present on our gratitude list this year. And thank you, Anne Marie, for switching the time around to make it fit for our schedule. So in the spirit of giving thanks, we'd like to take this time to say a huge thank you to some of very important people and organizations who have made an enormous impact over the last 2 years. So let's go ahead and get started with our gratitude list. So first off, the Food Council, amazing. As everyone knows, the Food Council has been the county's lead nonprofit partner, establishing and coordinating the task force's initiative of food access strategies, serving on its leadership unit, staffing the finance and admin unit, and participating on operations, communications, and strategic planning units. It's a mouthful, all of the work that the Food Council has put into our response. So in support of the county's pandemic response, the Food Council scaled up its operations significantly and expanded its scope of work and scale of work, and that scale has been proven invaluable, and it's something that needs to continue to happen. The Food Council has been a critical partner to the task force, and many of the county's food system initiatives would not have been successful without the Food Council's input, leadership, and support. So just to give a little bit of data on some of the work that the Food Council has done, the Food Council has led 4 grant-making programs, has facilitated stakeholder engagement and research, established grant funding priorities, and coordinated the application and review processes for the task force, as well as provided technical assistance and facilitated coordination among grantee organizations. Whew, I have to take a deep breath after that one. The Food Council has also established over 50 of these community calls to bring us all together on a regular basis so that the task force can share information and provide training for all of us to come together and create sustainable food systems. And most importantly, a huge thank you to the Food Council's fearless leader, Heather, for leading the task force and for answering about 2 million questions from Chris and I over the last 2 years. A huge, huge thank you to every single member of the Food Council. The task force is so incredibly grateful for all of you. And next up, our amazing food assistance providers. So since the beginning of the pandemic, the task force has helped support over 111 food assistance providers through the creation of grants and investments in key programs. The task force has invested almost $6 million into our local food banks to help purchase food for 46 food assistance providers to acquire almost 8 million pounds of food to distribute to our county residents. The task force has also invested over $13 million in purchasing food from local wholesalers so that food assistance providers can receive fresh produce and shelf-stable food. The task force has also given almost $3 million in grants to our food assistance provider network. And currently the task force is supporting 66 providers with direct food support through food bank procurement, bulk produce, and shelf-stable food. Without the help of our food assistance providers, the food security task force with the help of our food providers, the task force has been able to collaborate to create programs such as rice, bean, and lentil repackaging, setting up the Food Access Call Center, providing paper brown bags and PPE for food assistance providers, volunteers, and staff, and also distributing prepared meals to school students and their families while providing prepared meals to older adults at risk. Absolutely none of this would have been possible without our outstanding food assistance providers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to take a minute and build on that by specifically thanking our service consolidation hubs, who have really, in many ways, stepped up and taken a novel approach, and that is one that has been quite an evolution. I feel like every month we come back with something new or exciting we'd like to try at one or all of our hubs, and the hubs, every time we come up with wanting to try something new, are always there for us and always supportive. And I feel like they have really embodied we are going to have to figure this out as we go along because none of us have lived through a pandemic before mentality. So I really want to thank Deanna Tato-Niktosh, who was just absolutely critical in getting the hubs on their feet and helping them and supporting them. And also Suja, who's come up to speed so quickly. And I think just really every time I speak with her, it excites me about what the hubs can be and what direction we're headed in. So huge thanks to everybody involved in all that work. So I would really like to thank you all for continuing to participate in data collection. So data collection has been a major challenge, and we really appreciate the incredible amount of hard work that's gone into getting us information. And you've seen in the beginning slides here that Myra presented a lot of the roll-up numbers, the sort of aggregated numbers that we're able to articulate to leadership in our community that are based on the hard data that's in the reports that you guys give us. So it does get used, and we try to make good use of it, but we just would not be able to do our job at all without data on what was going on in the community. That said, we know that it's a painful process as we've grown and outgrown and rethought our data collection systems. And so I think maybe it makes sense to stop here and talk about what our thinking is for the path forward around data collection while we're thanking you, and talk a little bit about what we're going to try to do to make it a little easier for you guys in the future. So first of all, we are undergoing Myra and I are working on building out a third version of our data collection platform, and based on the lessons learned from the first, what feels like 100 versions, but was actually only 2. And we have some guiding principles this time around that we're using to direct our work and development. First, we want the system to be designed to provide food access providers who put data into it easy access to reports, and we want to give them the data in a way that is useful to them so that they can slice and dice and present their data. That's feedback we heard from our first 2 systems, that it felt very much like a black box. You would send data in and then it just had no access to it at that point, or it wasn't useful to you. So we've been doing a lot of work to try to make sure that whatever system we come up with will make it easy for you to get your data and get the version of your data that you need. Second, we realized we need in our data collection system to better reflect the various distribution models that are out there in the real world. This is something that's been a persistent and consistent weakness in our approach, is we have the sort of very generalized one size fits all buckets. And then when food access providers go in to report on distributions, they look and they go, well, that doesn't really make sense. Our distribution doesn't work that way. Or we have a distribution on Monday that looks like your data collection fields, but then our distribution on Thursdays, it doesn't look that way. And so we hear that, and we are working with some pilot programs to identify different distribution models that are out there and make sure they're reflected in data collection so that you can provide good information to us in a format that makes sense. Third, and this is what this picture is showing, we would really like to start tracking where it's collected zip code level data. And the idea here would be to be able to provide you back mapping of where the individuals served are coming from, so that we can start to assess, what we would like to do is start to assess how far folks are traveling to receive services from a distribution. And we would like to understand where we might have holes in our distribution network that we could work with everybody to fill. So we'd like to understand the travel that's involved to get to distributions and services. We'd like to understand hotspots for distribution, and we'd like to understand cold spots, places where we know we have a lot of people traveling from, but maybe don't have local distributions on a convenient schedule. We can do that if we have and understand our zip code level data. So we cannot do that if we have no idea, right? So if we know you serve 2,000 or 3,000 people or households, but you have no idea where they came from, we can't produce cool maps. We can't help fill the holes. And so we want to make it easy in the next version. And then we're hoping if we can make it easy enough, y'all can meet us halfway and start trying to provide the data and maybe collect the data, and we can all get creative as a community about best practices to do that. But this map gives you a sense of what could be possible if we work together in 2022. And fourth, we want to make providing the data easier and more flexible. One of the consistent things we've heard is that so I'll take, for example, one organization told us they had a volunteer, particularly data astute volunteer, who came in once a month to fill out and do their reporting. The problem was we asked for reporting weekly. And so what would happen is this organization would simply backfill a month of data. And so what it looked like is that they had 1 week of the month where they had huge distributions, but that was really not what was happening. What was happening is all the data was just getting put in the 1 week when they had the person to fill it out. And so we've talked a lot about ways we can make it easier and allow for things like vacations or people simply missing a week. We don't need to have holes in our data because humans are human. So we want to try to do that. So that's really all a quick update to say we really appreciate your continued participation, your help, your patience with Myra and I in developing out data collection. And we are hopeful that we can give you guys a data collection system over the next year or so that is something you can be thankful for instead of aggravated by this time next year.
Thank you, Chris. And just so everyone knows, I do have to hop off the call. So Chris is going to finish the presentation for me after this slide. But just before I go on to this slide, a huge thank you to everyone for your patience with the data collection. Like Chris was saying, this has, I'm sure, been a headache for you as it's been a headache for us. But every single time that you record your data and you give it to us, it's incredibly helpful, and I just can't thank you enough. So I'll kind of wrap up my portion of the slides by talking about collaboration with our food assistance providers. Thanks to the vital partnerships that our providers have provided not only food to people in need, but have also provided wraparound services such as legal support, medical and dental assistance, rental assistance, clothing assistance, and COVID-19 vaccinations and testing. And if you take a look at this slide, I am so impressed by this slide. I just find it amazing to see the numbers all rolled up into one about the real impact that our food assistance providers have had on the people that live in our county. So thank you. We are so grateful for our food assistance providers for going that extra mile to ensure that our residents are safe and healthy. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Myra. I appreciate your carving time out of your busy morning for us. I will try not to fumble the ball here towards the end. So we owe a big thanks to the really broad base of community partners that have come together during COVID. Just a few of which are sort of listed here. If you think about it, we brought, the reason for existence, if you will, for the Food Security Task Force was to try to bring together the various groups within our county that were working on food insecurity and have them coordinated at a level and in a way that they had never coordinated before to meet the unprecedented challenges that the pandemic put on the system. And I know just within government, we've been able to successfully break down a lot of the silos that have traditionally existed and engage a lot of partners that have not necessarily viewed food systems work as their primary work, or their view on it was just very narrowly within their cylinder of excellence. And so by breaking those things down, I think we've made a lot of progress, and we're very thankful for all the folks that have come to the table with us. Our goal in FY22 is to figure out how to maintain these partnerships and build on them as we transition out of our disaster response framework and we start to think about, how do we recover from the pandemic and what do we want our food system to look like moving forward. So we know at some point next year, the Food Security Task Force is going to be demobilized because we are a response task force to a pandemic that hopefully over the next 12 to 24 months is going to end. But that's not to say that we're eager to just go back to the way things were in 2018, 2019. I think we're at this really unique moment where we can think about how we should maintain the partnerships and the work and what it looks like going forward. And that's something that the Food Security Task Force is working a lot on and have quite a few thoughts about, many of which we're working with county leadership, both in the council and the executive's office, to understand what needs to be done to make sure that those silos don't sort of redevelop at the government level, but then also working with the Food Council to think about how we can maintain the portion and the collaborative work that the Food Security Task Force has been doing long run. And I think data collection is one of those great examples. We would have been much better off going into COVID if we had some baseline data numbers. We would have been better able to articulate exactly the funding we needed and probably received it quicker if we could show a change from our steady state in a really easy to understand way. And so data collection is something we don't, it can't stop, in my opinion, with COVID. It needs to be something that gets maintained, but we also know it can't exist forever within a response task force. So that's sort of where we are in our strategic thinking. But we would just be remiss without thanking all of the partners, of which there are many, many that have come to the table and helped us with this response. And then we want to call out some specific people, and I think some of them are on the call and many of them are not. So we certainly want to call them out specifically. First is Mark Hodge for his continued and dedicated support to public health and food security. We really wish him well in his new role and are continue to be thankful for his continued support to the task force. Deanna Tato for her incredible work with the hubs in the last 2 years, but also just her being in a wealth of knowledge, supporting our efforts around food and diapers and wraparound services, and always advocating on the behalf of our food access providers within government. She's a loud and wonderful voice to hear, supporting our food access providers. The ACAO, Earl Stoddard, he's one of those heroes that sort of is in the background. He was the head of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security and was one of the first people to really realize and champion food response within the county as something that we needed to do something new and special in response to the pandemic for our food system. And he's been a massive supporter of these efforts from day one. He was instrumental in getting the Food Security Task Force funded and getting folks working on it. And I can say he continues to be a real champion in that role. Obviously, we have to thank the incredible Marla Kaplan for all of the unbelievable and outstanding work she does in ordering and getting our bulk food items in. And we have to especially thank her and cheer her on for Thanksgiving, because it's just been an incredibly difficult 2 weeks for her. And I know we all just really appreciate the incredible work she does. Finally, Lindsay Smith is the Regional Food Systems Value Chain Coordinator for the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. She has done tremendous work to bring regional preparedness about in the last 20 months. So she convened MWCOG's Food Security Regional Workshop, and she leads and serves on multiple regional committees, such as the Farm Committee, HCMA's Food and Water Supply Chain Resilience Technical Advisory Committee, the Capital Area Food Bank Playbook, as well as a bunch. So she's another one of those heroes that if you're not working in the regional space, you may not have worked with her, but if you have done, you know her and know the incredible work she's done in moving the ball forward in this area. So huge thanks to those specific folks. And of course, thank you to everybody. We just it's a wonderful time of year to stop and think about all the work we've done, and we really appreciate Food Council letting us take over the first part of their call to thank everybody. With that, I can take some questions if people have them. I know there was one that percolated up early on. I happened to glance about where are we on getting those grants out, the resilience building grants that the Food for Montgomery is putting out. I know that they're in their final stage of review, and I can defer to the very capable Anna Hargrave to answer specifics, but the last time that I had interacted with her was last week, and it sounded like we were very close to having final decisions on those. So that's as good as I can do, other than I know that was a lot of really excellent applications, and they're taking the time to go through them really carefully. Anything else? Any other questions I can answer? No?
Chris, in case anything bubbles up now, first, I did just want to thank you and Myra so much for that presentation. For those of you who may not see farther back on Chris's screen, just to show how much he delivers, we have a lovely Thanksgiving message that he's prepared for us on Blackboard at my joking prodding after having been on a call with him on Halloween, where he really upped the Zoom background game. So that's, he's always delivering, and we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions there, so we are going to move things along. I'm going to turn things over to Elizabeth Tuen of the Food Council staff to provide a brief overview of our hot off of the presses capacity grant report, which is going to be shared in the chat. So Elizabeth.
Thank you, Anne Marie. And yes, we're going to take a quick look back at our capacity grant program. We are excited to announce the release of this report on key findings and impact of the COVID-19 Emergency Food Assistance Provider Capacity Building Grants. This program was made possible through a public-private partnership between the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services, the Montgomery County Food Council, the Healthcare Initiative Foundation, and the Greater Washington Community Foundation's Food for Montgomery Fund. So with CARES Act dollars and with these private philanthropic donations, over $1.2 million were invested in our community to support 28 organizations engaged in food assistance operations during the pandemic. And I invite you to sort of flip through the report as I give just a brief overview of how this money was spent and what it did. You'll see a lot of fantastic photographs from all of the participants' work and some interesting metrics and a word cloud there that kind of shows you the vast number of different things that were purchased with these dollars. So this report shows sort of the immediate and concrete effect that the funds had on the food assistance providers' efficiency and their capacity to provide a safe operating environment during this pandemic. The funds provided necessary support to expand the reach of food distribution to previously isolated communities, and also allowed food assistance providers to reach other food resources through the purchase of vans and trucks and It allowed them to access more food through the increase of dry and cold storage capacity with shelving, a lot of refrigeration units, freezers, and access to warehouse space. And they were able to improve operations at distribution sites through the use of pallet jacks and hand trucks and additional tables and canopies and safety equipment, traffic control. And it also allowed for better data collection and analysis of impact. A lot of the food assistance providers were able to purchase tablets or other equipment to track data, but also to use that equipment to publicize their events and educate their community through the use of flyers and videos and that kind of thing. And one of the really interesting aspects of this project that came through from reading all of the grantees' final reports were that there were so many sort of intangible benefits that resulted from these infrastructure improvements. So you hear about buying a van or some shelving, and maybe it sounds dry, but in reading through these reports, you saw how these grants enabled organizations to serve more residents and ultimately establish deeper connections with the community. They provided a foundation for future planning. They bolstered partnership and collaboration among organizations in the county. And a number of grantees reported really boosting the morale of their staff and volunteers who got to see new equipment to improve the way that they could operate, get more food to more people in a safe manner. So with all of that, we would like to deeply thank our partners, DHHS, the Healthcare Initiative Foundation, and Greater Washington Community Foundation for their support and for administering these grants, and also to the 28 grantees who are able to make a greater impact on the community as a result of these funds. And so now I hope if Anna is here, I would like to introduce Anna Hargrave. I'm sure you all know her, but she's the Executive Director of the Community Foundation in Montgomery County for Greater Washington Community Foundation. So Anna, if you would like to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say again how grateful we were to the county, to the Food Council, and of course to the Healthcare Initiative Foundation for their yeoman's task, putting together a grant application and screening tool and managing all the applications. It's a big deal. It's a lot of work, especially for something this important and something that had to be done that fast. So just kudos to the entire team, and we were so honored to be able to join with it and to add some private philanthropic dollars to close the gap. And then just in looking at the results, I think it really just brought us back to, why we said yes to joining this partnership in the first place. The idea that all of you were willing to put your lives on the line to make sure that our neighbors weren't going hungry, and that you worked so hard to coordinate and prevent duplication. And then at that point, the barrier was a truck, a freezer, a fridge. It was like, somebody go buy those people what they need. So I have nothing to offer but thanks and my deepest admiration to all of you. We had an event last week, and I was saying to folks, all the money we moved, it would have been sitting in the bank collecting dust if it weren't for our partners who converted that into relief and converted it into this amazing response. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Anna, and thank you, Elizabeth, for that presentation. That was great to hear. Moving along with our gratitude theme, we will now hear from Cheryl Collin of MANA's Community Food Rescue Program. You will remember that Cheryl recently shared food assistance provider feedback from the Farm to Food Bank survey, as to what items you most desired farmers to grow. Cheryl is now going to share the feedback our county farmers provided to the growers portion of this survey, including what the program has meant to them. Thanks so much for joining us, Cheryl.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Good afternoon, everyone. So happy to share more about the Farm to Food Bank program. Just to remind everyone that the Farm to Food Bank program is a collaboration between MANA Food Center, the Montgomery County Food Council, and the Montgomery County Office of Agriculture. And really thanks to Montgomery County and the Community Foundation of Greater Washington, MANA has been able to purchase freshly harvested produce meat and eggs and grains from local farmers. And then we donate them through Community Food Rescue to our network food assistance providers. And you can see some stats I provided here in red of the growth of the program, and also our website if any food assistance providers want to join for next year. You can go to our website. What I wanted to share today was really the survey results. We asked farmers how the Farm to Food Bank program was benefiting them and what they were able to get out of the program. The program was started during COVID, and it was really to provide farmers with some local income to replace some of the income that they've lost during COVID. And of course, then the food is shared with the food assistance providers. So here you can see a few of our farmers. On the right, we have Stephanie Burke from the Takuna Lum farm, who's been providing some incredible eggs, both duck eggs and chicken eggs. And then on the left, we have Purple Mountain Organics, who's been able to provide produce and also local grains. I wanted to share my next slide here, seeing some more farmers. And I really just wanted to share with you a couple of quotes from the farmers themselves. So here we have farmer Tanya Spandla of the Passion to Seed Gardening. She talks about how the County Farm to Food Bank program supports the environment. And I quote, "This program is the best of both worlds. Not only does the farmer get paid and the recipients get local fresh produce, but this program reduces farm produce waste that would have decayed or decomposed in the field." She goes on to also explain that this program helps to bridge the gap in some communities that are not able to afford good quality fresh produce. And I just want to also share what Nia Namawea from Beauty Blooms Farm has shared with us. And I quote, "The Farm to Food Bank program strengthens the community. Access to healthy, nutritious, culturally relevant food is a basic need and a right of all Montgomery County residents. I am thrilled to be part of a program that supports local farmers in a sales outlet, connects farmers with food assistance providers, and distributes locally grown produce that's grown with care and intention of feeding our community and to our neighbors. As a woman-owned, Black-owned beginning farm, the grant was integral to breaking down the barrier of startup costs in the first year of operation." She's referring to a supplemental grant that farmers were invited to apply for, as well as direct sales of their products. And she finishes up by saying, "I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to be part of the Montgomery County Farm to Food Bank program, and I hope it continues for many, many years," end quote. So just wanted to share those words of gratitude from our local farmers who have been supplying so much of the local produce through the County Farm to Food Bank program. Check it out on the communityfoodrescue.org website if you are not yet a member, and join our network. And we'll be happily being able to provide more local fresh produce next growing season. Thanks. Back to you, Anne Marie.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. That's great. I will now introduce Cynthia Quesas of the Food Council staff to share her appreciation for the efforts of the Food Security Community Advisory Board in advancing advocacy work this year. Hi, Cynthia.
So I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry. Okay. So I just wanted to say a huge thanks and farewell to the Food Security Community Advisory Board 2021 cohort. So we had 13 board members this year who created advocacy plans that regarding food insecurity in their communities. And just to name a few, one advocacy plan focused on helping Afghan refuge access food and housing. Another Food Security Advisory Board member was helping elderly people in his community by volunteering as a food truck driver and delivering foods to their homes. And we also had another Food Advisory Member Vanessa Pierre, who was featured on MSNBC and for speaking about speaking at the White House with President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on the importance of the child tax credit and access to healthy foods. And just wanted to share some few stats. So throughout the year, the Food Security Advisory Board members reached out to 575 people regarding information on SNAP benefits. And the members also reached out to over 9,000 people on social media regarding their advocacy plans. And I wanted to share how important and crucial the work of the members were when the Maryland Department of Human Services announced the discontinuation of SNAP emergency allotments for October 2021. Our members, they wrote to officials daily about the importance of continuing emergency allotments and even notified their communities about the changes. And, thanks in part to their advocacy efforts, Maryland did continue the emergency allotments throughout October. So huge thanks to the Food Security Advisory Board, and very thankful for all they've done for improving food insecurity in the community. Thank you.
Okay. Before I lead into our community call highlights from the Montgomery County Food Council, I realize we shared out a lot of information there. Is there anyone who had any questions for any of our previous speakers? I see Crystal in the chat. Crystal, please, if there's anything you wanted to share about the capacity grants report, if anyone had any questions about that, we are happy to take them. Awesome.
I'll just say hello, and I'm just so enjoying having an opportunity to listen on a cumulative level, all of the successes. We see small parts of it, from our investments in Food for Montgomery with our more tailored grants that are areas of focus, and then the fiscal sponsorship with the two other emergency grants. But just to hear collectively how all the systems are pulling together, and we are some individual cogs, and how it just makes such a beautiful wheel of a functioning system is just wonderful. And as chatting with Anna Maria, that it's so wonderful to take this opportunity to reflect on the successes that we are having. We were all drivers and we work tirelessly because we see such need, but I think also recognizing where we have been and where we're going is also so vital. As Christopher was saying in the beginning, we don't want to go back to where we were when we've made such progress. And it's just, these are such vital, pivotal moments to take that necessary time to make sure that we intentionally move forward on the strong foundation that we built out of crisis that have really behooved us all in improving a greater food system for our community. So thank you all for your efforts, and just so appreciate partnering with such wonderful leaders and throughout our community. So happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks so much, Crystal. And I hope the video presentation that Elizabeth is going to run in just a second will help us do some of that reflecting on all the work that's been done this year, as well as since the start of COVID in March 2020. So that being said, we would now like to take a few moments to look back at this past year of community calls and to say a thank you to all who have faithfully shown up week after week to learn from one another and share your experiences with our community of food assistance providers. These calls would not have been possible without the help of so many people, from our council members on FROG who provided guidance and support, to elected and county officials who shared their expertise, and to the food assistance providers who shared highlights of their work, attended virtual trainings, moderated breakout rooms, and provided so many helpful resources. We thank you all for making this bi-weekly gathering a place of sharing, learning, and connection. And with that being said, we'll cross our fingers for the technology gods as Elizabeth presses play.
As I'm doing that, I suggest if you would like, for your full viewing pleasure, to switch to the full screen mode so you can read all the words in here. All right, here we go.
Thank you so much for that. So two things I wanted to point out before we move on to our Food Council announcements and updates and give a chance for other announcements. I did want to recognize that we have two Food Recovery and Access Working Group members on the call today who are going to be rolling off of those positions, but hopefully not rolling away too far and still staying a part of our community. And the first one there is Jenna Umbriak, who had served as a co-chair of FROG the past 4 years, Jenna? Who knows?
For 14, I'm not sure.
Oh, where does the time go? Where does the time go? But we're really appreciative for all of Jenna's leadership in this time and back in the time when we used to meet in person on Dennis Avenue. And also to Dave Lambert, who is also on the call and will also be rolling off of the Food Council after. Also, Dave, were you also on for 4 years, I believe? So yeah.
Yes, that's correct. 4 years.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. And like we said, we hope you don't go far because we still need our community together. I did also want to be sure I remembered to thank my coworker, Elizabeth Tuin, for all of the work that she puts into making these calls happen. They would not happen this way without her. And so every other week, she is definitely making the magic happen both behind the scenes and on these calls. So thank you so much for your work. And also for all the other Food Council staff that pitches in as necessary for all the long list of other tasks that go along with these calls, like tracking attendance and the chat. And so Beza and Cynthia, and everyone else who joins us. I just wanted to be sure to take a moment and highlight their work. So thank you. All right. Moving on to the announcement portions, just a funding opportunity to make you aware of. The Sodexo Stop Hunger Youth Grants are available. Let me make sure I've got this correct. Okay, so Youth Service America and Sodexo Stop Hunger Foundation are looking for the best ideas from young people about how they can provide immediate food aid to help end hunger today, while also going beyond food aid to help ensure people are not hungry tomorrow. Grants of up to $500 are supporting youth leaders ages 5 to 25 across the US to turn their ideas into action and make an impact on the issue of childhood hunger. There is also an option to apply for a fundraising match grant, which includes $100 for fundraising related costs and a $400 matching grant to a local hunger relief organization of your choice. We will put a link to the program in the chat box now. Also, ReFed, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to ending food loss and waste across the US food system, has an RFP out for solutions to support the mission of the ReFed COVID-19 Food Waste Solution Fund. These grants aim to help prevent and/or rescue US food waste by at least 250 tons of food or 417,000 meals in the next 90 days. It is looking like they will accept recycling solutions. And we will put the full proposal in the chat box now. The deadline is rolling and they continue to welcome additional submissions to be considered for future funding rounds. We do have some virtual trainings coming up to tell you about. The first is Raise Your Voice, Effective Advocacy, and Engagement through Social Media, which takes place on Wednesday, December 1st from 7 to 8 p.m. Join the Food Council for this skill building workshop to learn about community engagement and advocacy through social media. This hands-on training will explore the importance of culturally competent communication and ways to increase the visibility of your priority issues with compelling content. Using real-world examples of current policy initiatives, we will share social media strategies and graphics tools that will help you raise awareness about the food systems issues you are most passionate about. This program is being held in the evening to accommodate those not available during business hours. If you are interested but cannot attend, we encourage you to register to receive a recording of the event and follow-up materials. We will put that registration information in the chat now. And lastly, intersection of housing and food insecurity. We will be hosting that on December 14th from 11 a.m. to noon. This virtual training will offer food assistance providers the tools they need to assist clients with housing concerns. It will connect you with county officials and other organizations who can provide housing resources to your clients. Participants will also learn about how individuals experiencing homelessness can access food through prepared meals programs and federal nutrition benefits. That being said, we have 8 minutes left. If there are any of our food assistance providers or other members of the community on the call today that have any announcements they would like to share, last minute gratitudes they would like to put out there, we are happy to give the floor to you and hear from you now.
This is Dave Lambert. I'm not going to be going very far. As you know, I've been volunteering with Celestial Manna since 2018. I got a door hanger put on my front door back a couple of weeks ago, and it says that my neighborhood has been selected for the food scraps pickup pilot by the county. So I immediately signed up, and we'll see how that goes.
That's great, Dave. Thank you so much for your service. We're glad to hear you won't be going far, and we look forward to hearing some updates on that pilot program firsthand. Anyone else? I know so many of you are going to be tied up the next few days with food distributions for Thanksgiving, so we appreciate all the time that goes into that. I'm just checking the chat quick to see if there's anything anyone wanted to share there. Not seeing anything, but feel free to just chime in.
HIS has their capacity building grants open, so please be sure to check that out. I'm putting the link into the website. They're due mid-December. There is a training that's on a PowerPoint online that you can go through for any questions, but we're also available. And one of our major areas for this application round is around social determinants of health, which applies to food security. So I'm putting our website in there, and it's due in mid-December. So, but please feel free to reach out to us with any questions.
Thanks so much, Crystal. We'll be sure to share that in the email that goes out tomorrow with any resources from this meeting. So that's great. Okay. So that being said, as always, I hope you have found this information and these resources useful. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. As a reminder, our next food security call will take place on December 6th from 1 to 2 p.m., where we will be talking about racial equity in the food system. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you in December.
Happy Thanksgiving, happy Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, yes, that too.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanksgiving, happy Hanukkah.
Thanks, everyone.
Up on us.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy everything, everyone. Be
Happy
happy.
everything, Carla. Happy.
Wumco is still giving
Thank
out
you, Anna.
turkeys today.
Oh,
Thank
Adam,
you, everybody.
Adam,
Long time
good to
buddy,
see you on
holiday
Saturday.
Saturday.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Love you, Judy. Thank you so much.
I love you right back, my
Girl.
sister.
Thank you for all that stuffing too, girl, the macaroni. We needed it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you.
Bless you, everybody. Thank you so much. Well done.
Excellent, excellent.
I'm happy to keep this call open for anyone else to express love to each other. Hi, Pat.
I'm headed out.
Bye, Judy. Have a great week.
Bye. Greatness to you as well. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, Shay.